All right. Well, starting with the game from last week, obviously games like that hurt your heart. Anytime you lose a one possession game, one that you played so hard in. I was proud of our team for fighting and playing as hard as they did and taking it down to the last second to decide the game. I think if we would have gotten that onside kick with 2 timeouts left, we would have gone down and scored and won. And I think everyone on our sideline believed the same. It's just it's a game of inches. We're down 11 points with 3 minutes and set it on the sideline. We're going to score. We're going to get the 2-point conversion. We're going to kick it onside and we're going to go win the game. And we were close. And obviously that doesn't matter in the outcome, but I'm proud of the guys for believing and fighting. And we were right there. And I think there's always regretful moments, regretful play calls, decisions, plays themselves. When you look at a game like that, that changed the game, and there's lots of plays when you go back and study it that we left out there that could have had a different outcome. And I'm sure they say the same, that they left plays out there. But when you kind of compare the whole thing and break it all down, third down is really what tilted the game their way. As you know, we've been tremendous on third down defensively all year. And in this game, we weren't enough. I think offensively, one of our goals was to stay on the field on third down and keep their offense on the sideline. And we didn't do that. So credit to them. And we have to be better there. But I think that's the complementary football that we needed and didn't have. There was other things we did very well, defensively getting takeaways to offset their takeaways, special teams plays, setting us up and scoring. So there were several things that were complementary and then there was things that weren't and just wasn't enough. We're down enough players on defense now, or 7 when Shy went out with the targeting penalty, that were starters that weren't playing, where it's hard to play 100-play game on defense with that kind of depth reduction. So that's the game. Both teams had 3 turnovers. Both teams had explosive plays in the special teams return game. And when you have to play as many snaps as we did, I felt like our ability to rotate and stay fresh defensively, which we've been able to do. And we haven't had to play that many snaps in a game all year. Really, in the end, we just couldn't make enough plays there. I thought in the first half, we played 50 snaps, and obviously we kept the score down to a manageable differential. And then our offense got hot and just wasn't enough. Some positive things offensively. We ran the ball for 4.1 yards a carry. Obviously, we'd like to be able to run it more, but just the game didn't dictate that. Threw for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. We had 60 passing attempts, which obviously is too many, but only gave up 2 sacks in those 60 attempts. I thought that was good. Negatives, we can't turn the football over 3 times, and when they get a return out of one of them, Devin's fumble ended up giving them the ball on the plus 5 yard line. That's challenging defensively. And just some layup things. We had 3 drops that were all catchable. We were in the red zone 4 times and only got 2 touchdowns, had a field goal and missed a chip shot, which we needed, losing by 3 and missing a 33-yarder. And on third down, like I said, we didn't get it done. Positives on defense, we had to defend 18 possessions. In those 18 possessions, we had 7 3-and-outs and 3 takeaways and stopped the run. There were less than 3 yards of carry. So there was a lot of positives in those possessions. The negatives were when they got in the red zone, we just didn't stop them. They were 5 for 5 down there for touchdowns. And then on third and long, where we're normally really, really good, we just didn't get it done enough, whether they completed it or there was a penalty, whether it was a holding penalty or a pass interference penalty. We had 4 of those that extended their drives and kept them on the field. And I think the special teams were kind of a 2-sided thing. Like our return game was excellent, was outstanding. Best kickoff return game probably that we've had here in one day. And then obviously their returner had 2 plays that hurt us. I think Trent Gill has done a phenomenal job all year. And the one time he punts one without hang time is the one time we needed hang time. And unfortunately that hurt us, that punt return at the end. I think the squib kick is on me. And I know use your experiences. We were kicking into the wind. They had a good returner. Was hopeful that we'd bounce it multiple times back there and throw off the timing of their return. In the past, I've kicked into the wind and they give up a big return and you're like, why didn't you squib it? It's just one of those things. It's great to sit here after a game and say, I wish I would have done this, wish I would have done that. And I made the decision. It didn't work. So I have to own that before the half. We gave them good field position. They got 3 points out of that. Bottom line is we still had a chance to contain that guy on a 25-yard line and get him down, and we didn't get it done. So, we need to kick the ball in the end zone. Obviously, wish I would have done that. At the same time, we need to execute the coverage and get people on the ground. The onside kick at the end of the game was really well done. It was well executed. I think if they would have called it our way, they probably couldn't have overturned it. It was one of those where you probably don't have conclusive evidence either way, and they made a judgment call on the field. Unfortunately, it wasn't in our favor. I thought it was a good kick by Chris and a play right on the 10-yard mark with Ricky. And I couldn't see a good enough replay of it to tell you one way or the other if it was a good or a bad call. I just know it was a call that probably didn't have conclusive evidence either way based on how they called it on the field. But, Wake deserves congrats and Coach Clausen and their team. For us, we got a lot to play for. It starts with this game with Syracuse, very physical team. They're a very good defensive football team. They're in the top 20 in a couple categories and top 3 in our league in several. Good rushing defense. They pressure a lot. They got a good defensive line that's very productive. They're number 1 in the conference in rushing offense and have the top running back statistically in the league. And their quarterback rushes the ball well and is a North Carolina native. And they embrace Dino's mentality. I think he's an aggressive coach. He's a sound football coach. He's done a great job for many years as a head football coach, and I have a lot of respect for him. You can see that they've changed a lot. I think he's playing to his personnel. They've got a good back. They got a running quarterback. They got a big offensive line. Their DBs run around. Their linebackers are really active. They've recruited well on the defensive line. And so, they have in their 10 games, they've rushed the football for over 200 yards 7 times and over 300 yards twice. And that's against good people. 300 yards against Wake, 300 yards against Virginia Tech. So we've got a great opportunity, great challenge with their rushing attack. And for us, it's just changing the narrative, instead of talking about Charlotte and controlling our own destiny, that's out of our control now. Obviously, Wake has to go on the road and play at Clemson, at BC, and however that plays out, it plays out. The only thing we control is what we do the next 11 days. We got 2 games in 11 days. Both of them are at home and great opportunities against great opponents. This one's Military Appreciation Week, and it's an awesome setting in our stadium. Our fans have always done a great job of coming out and supporting the military during this, the flyover, the flag on the field, and it's a special night. And a big thank you to our military personnel, active and inactive, for what they do and what they've done for our nation. And it's a great opportunity just to celebrate them in a game night. And so look forward to that, and then after that game, we get a rivalry game on Senior Day, no less. So 2 great opportunities to write a great ending. And it's the same approach here. Let's find a way to get better. Let's find a way to get healthy. We got some guys banged up. We're using some industrial duct tape on a few guys right now, and they're playing with a lot of heart. And love coaching these guys. So, look forward to seeing how we can finish and get up off the canvas. It's always hard when you lose a tough game. But as you've seen with this football team, they've responded every time they've had to, and I expect them to do the same again. So with that, any questions?
Jonas.
Hey, Coach, I know the last 2 years we talked a lot about cross-training guys, and since Shabattle has to miss the first half, I imagine Aiden and Pitts and Chris Ingram will get a lot of reps. But do you cross-train maybe T-Bake or JPL or Boyk and some other guys to kind of provide some relief in that cornerback spot?
We'll have to see what the injury report says today. There's a lot of guys that can play out there that you just mentioned. And, I think those are all things that probably will be discussed at some point. Feel pretty good about how Derek Pitts is playing. And, there was a rotation already at that position between the other guys. And so we'll just have to see where we end up with that. But, my bigger concern isn't really missing Shy for the first half. Obviously we will. And, again, that rule, I hope they really look hard at that rule for a guy losing a whole half in the next game. But there's a bunch of guys on that side of the football that need to heal quickly for us. And, good thing is, we're not playing a team that tries to get 100 plays in a game. They're more of a ball control team, which, I think is good for us.
Todd Gibson.
Yeah, Dave, I know, coming off this loss, I know it's disappointing, but is it good that you have something to look forward to, a rivalry game ahead? I know it's one game at a time, but the guys in the back of their mind know that there's still a lot to play with because of just what's coming down the road, especially with North Carolina coming up in a week and a half. Yeah.
Well, I think the 2 home games just been gone so much, Todd, like 4 out of 5 on the road it's a lot. And, with a lot of them being late at night and getting home late at night, I think the guys are just excited to be in town for 2 straight weeks. One of our goals here is to be undefeated at home, and that's a realistic goal. We have 2 games here at the Carter to finish it up, and against 2 good opponents. As you said, one of them's a rivalry game, and it's senior day, all those things. So we're definitely not looking towards that game or past Syracuse. This is a team, they're impressive. I think Dino deserves a lot of credit. They were 4 wides and 5 wides and 100 plays a game and max tempo, and now they're running the football and controlling the clock. And he's really shifted in what they're doing up there, and it's helped them. They're playing fewer plays on defense. They're not giving up as many explosive plays. So this is going to be a challenging matchup here.
David.
You mentioned the targeting penalty against Cheyenne. Is the frustration about is it the penalty itself, or is it the severity of the penalty that kind of has you frustrated?
No, I think, the penalty is what it is. If you hit with the crown of your helmet, then it's a penalty. And I agree with that. We're trying to be safer in our sport. I have no problems with that. And they called what they saw, and I agree with what they saw. I think there was no intent on injuring anybody on that play. It wasn't like he was launched and speared a guy, and none of that happened, and for a guy to get kicked out of a game and the next game for that, I just think that doesn't make sense. They really need to look hard at this rule, and whether it's 2 different realms of targeting, or it's like the rest of the penalties in college football. If you have 2 of them in a game, you're out. I don't like the way that it punishes not just the player, it punishes the team. When you lose a player for half of a game and half of the next game, particularly when it's not a penalty that, like I said, had intent. It's one thing when a guy runs down the field on a punt. You see those plays where the punt returner is looking up and he just gets smoked with, I agree with throwing that guy out of the game. Like, that guy tried to hurt that player right there. Most of these targeting penalties aren't that. You see guys sliding on offense, and the defensive guy's committed himself already, and now he's thrown out of the game. And I just don't think that's what the intention of the rule was even for.
So you kind of think it's sort of an overreaction.
Well, I think everything you do has consequences. Some of them are unintended. And I think what we're seeing now is a lot of unintended consequences to a good rule. And I just think they need to relook at it and try to get out of the rule what the rule was intended to do. And that's protect players, that are in positions where they're not protected. And when a guy's running the football clearly, and he chooses to slide and change where he's going to be hit, that to me on defense is really, really hard. Really hard.
Jonas.
Coach, you mentioned the Syracuse defense. You said they've recruited well on the D line. Their linebackers and their defensive backs fly around. Not asking you to unveil the game plan, but how do you attack a defense like this? It's so active and it's caused so much havoc and disruption on that side of the ball.
Yeah, well, you got to be smart with how much you ask your guys to do. I think you got to have good rules. Your guys got to be able to play fast with them. You got to know they are going to make some plays. Like, they're going to commit a lot of guys to the box. They're going to stunt. They're going to blitz. They're a lot like, us and Mississippi State and some of the other 3-down teams that, have active movement on their fronts. So you can't do too much. And I think the more you do, the more your guys think, and the slower you play. And then all of a sudden, all that stuff starts getting in your backfield, and that's not good. So we just got to be good at what we do and make sure we're doing things that our kids can handle. And it's hard to ID some of the stuff. They do a lot. But the stuff that you can't ID, we got to be smart about how we attack it.
James,
Yeah, Dave, Trent has been playing well for you guys. He went down early in that game. How much does that impact maybe game plan? And do you have any sort of update on him?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a sore shoulder. He's a tough guy, man. He's been playing with it, and unfortunately just got hit right on that spot. So, we'll just have to see how it turns out with them. As far as game planning, yeah, I mean, you have backups for him. Sometimes that position, maybe it's not the bang for your buck that you would have got, you know what I mean? So maybe you just go to a different set of things that you're going to do. But we never have, for example, if we're in 11 personnel and Trent's the tight end and we got plays we like with Trent, Chris Tootle can run those plays, I mean, he can be in there and do that. So, I think some of it gets into, what Tim's seeing and what we're going to call. We ran a couple plays while Trent was in the game to get him the ball and didn't, because they covered him, and, he threw the ball to Emeka on one of them. So, sometimes he gets covered up, but Trent Penix has been a really valuable part of our offense, as you know, this season. And so I know he'll do everything he can to be back out there. And if he can't, we'll have to make adjustments.
David,
I wanted to ask you just a little bit about Icky. I mean, we know, what an incredible player he is, but can you just speak on his maturity in the last 3 years, how you've seen that change, and just what's he kind of like in the locker room on the sidelines?
Honor to coach a young man like him. Comes from a great family, very respectful, always handles his business in the classroom, in person, very polite, outgoing, lively, energetic, and then on the field, dominating. He's one of those guys that puts his helmet on and changes and wants to finish people, and takes a lot of pride in improving. I mean, I think he's improved as much as any guy on our team. When you look at what he wanted to be better at this year, was his pass pro, and he's done a tremendous job with that. He's worked hard in the weight room to improve, not just strength, which you guys see, but his flexibility and things like that. So, he's everything you want on the offensive line. He can play multiple positions, and he's a very durable guy. So, you can depend on him. And he's not a guy that makes mistakes. He understands what Coach Garrison wants. And usually when you look at his grades, there's very few, we call MAs, missed assignments on there.
Todd Gibson.
Yeah, Dave, you've said all along that you like how this team has been led. Did some players step up after the disappointment of the Wake Forest loss, or do the guys just, as normal, just do what they do in situations like that?
No, they will. They'll step up. I mean, each position group has guys that are more vocal. You guys know who they are by now. And, the thing that's had to happen because of the injuries is certain guys have had to take on more, like Drake has taken on more in a linebacker room. But, after the game, there's a lot of hurt young men, as you would expect, hurt coaches, and came in yesterday and just kind of, like I said, set a new narrative on what's left and got them re-engaged to the 13 days we had at that time in that meeting, and what our plan of attack would be for these last 13 days, and all the things that we have to play for. We have a lot to play for here. Like I said, being undefeated at home, is a huge goal of ours, one that I haven't accomplished since I've been here. So it'd be a great goal to have, a rivalry win, getting to 9 wins with a chance to win 10 and getting double digits. And so the guys were all understanding of what it is. And then we know there's an outside chance that things could not go the way they're supposed to, and games across the league. I mean, we all watch college football. People are getting upset every week. Every week somebody goes down. So who knows what's going to happen? All we can do is control our final 2 games and see where that puts us.
Jonas.
You actually just answered my question about the narrative and the goals of winning 10 games, because it hasn't been done since 2002. Do the guys realize, do they need a history lesson to be told, like how rare that has been here to win 10 games?
Yeah, I think some of them do because we've talked about it, a couple years ago, and we had back-to-back 9-win seasons. We had talked about it back then, and there's a few guys, old heads, that are still here from that. But you're right, there's a lot of guys that aren't. So, all have to do a good job of, continuing, which we did on Sunday, to talk about what's in front of us and what our opportunities are. So there's been an 11-win team. There's been several 9-win teams. There hasn't been a 10-win team. So this is an opportunity, as a senior class, from a legacy standpoint, to have something to talk about if we can do that. And as you know, it won't happen if we don't win the next one. So that's got to be where we put all our eggs right now.
And obviously, you have plenty in front of you with Syracuse just to keep you occupied and keep you busy. But do you become like the biggest Wake and Boston, not Wake, Clemson and Boston College fan the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'm not going to wish ill will on anybody. I'm going to cheer for us, and cheering for us means we want everyone to lose that needs to lose, So, I have to focus on what we control on this side of it. And Lord knows we've had enough bad luck throughout the years. It'd be great to have a little good luck down the stretch here. So, we're going to do that on our side and say our prayers and light our candles and do all the different ritual things we can, and see if we can get some luck down the stretch, man.
James.
Dave, Omeka had a couple of quiet games, relatively quiet games for him leading into this one, and really obviously went off. I mean, when you were watching him in that game, did you sense he was really in a groove and kind of wanted to funnel stuff to him?
Yeah, I mean, it from the get, they had injuries at corner, and we knew that. And that was part of our game plan, as you saw. In the first play, we ended up throwing to Omeka, and then the second play we threw deep to Devin. We wanted to attack their corners, and unfortunately we didn't get enough points doing that early, but as the game went on, we did. And Omeka played a really good football game. He made some great catches, which he always does. He made his routine catches. He had some good runs after the catch. So it was great to see him play that way. And his last time playing that team, we all know how his career started against that team. So it's great to see him play that way against Wake.
Do we have any other questions for Coach Doeren?
Yes, I have one more. I just completely ignored the raise your hand thing. I apologize. Coach, I know you watch plenty of film on Syracuse and you got to watch your film, but do you go back to the games where teams have had success moving the ball against them and kind of study those games a little bit more, knowing what kind of defense and offense they have?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we watch every film. You're going to look at the statistics of every game, and on both sides of the football, on special teams, who did well, who didn't do well, why did that happen? And so we're definitely going to do that. It's part of breaking down the team and really seeing who does things that are similar to us, and were those things successful or not successful, and then looking at the personnel matchups, where are we going to have our hands full? Like number 18 for them has 20 tackles in the backfield, 8 sacks and 12 TFLs. He's a really good player. And Kingsley's been there forever. I think that guy's been there for 8 years, the other defensive end, number 9, and that guy makes a ton of plays, so they got a good defensive line. And I think it's really important. Coach Garrison and Coach Beck will do this, and Coach Roper, what part of the, blocking schemes for the protections and the play actions and the run game fit best, and who's had similar pictures that we can study to see if, our ideas are good ideas.
Anybody else? All right, Coach, thanks. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good one.